It is a title that echoes from an eternal golden throne pharaoh. Not just a king, but a living god on earth. His word was Mayat, the divine order that held the universe together. His hand commanded the Nile. His will commanded the stone, raising monuments that scraped the heavens. For 3,000 years, this civilization was the immovable center of the world, built to last forever. They mastered engineering on a scale that still defies imagination. They mapped the stars to chart the mind of the gods. They built a golden afterlife so detailed, their tombs were functioning portals to eternity. Their power was absolute, their culture immortal, and then they vanished. This was not a gentle fading. It was a brutal erasure. Their tombs were ripped open, their sacred mummies desecrated for gold. Their gods were outlawed, their temples abandoned to the sand. Their sacred language was silenced, becoming meaningless scratches in the dust for over 400 years. The last person to hold the title of true pharaoh wasn't even Egyptian. How does a civilization that defined eternity die? It wasn't one battle. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, a slow, agonizing unraveling dealt by catastrophic famine, by invasions of iron and terror, and by a crisis of faith that rotted the divine throne from within. This is the story of that execution, the story of the day the pharaohs truly vanished. To understand the end, we must look not to the final day, but to the first crack in the golden mask. We travel back to 1177 BC. The world is ruled by giants. The new kingdom of Egypt, led by titans like Ramesses the Great, commands an empire stretching from Libya to Syria. Gold flows into Thebes like water. The temples of Karnak and Luxor rise, monuments to unshakable power. Egypt is not just a kingdom. It is the anchor of the civilized world. But beyond the borders, a storm is gathering. A mysterious confederation of raiders, known only as the Sea Peoples, crashes onto the shores of the Mediterranean. The Hittite Empire, Egypt's great rival, is burned to the ground. The Mycenaean palaces of Greece are reduced to rubble. Civilization itself is collapsing. Ramesses III, the last great warrior pharaoh, watches the world burn. He writes of the invaders. No land could stand before their arms. Egypt alone stands against the tide. In 2 brutal campaigns on land and at the mouth of the Nile, Ramesses III achieves a miracle. He defeats the Sea Peoples. He saves Egypt. On the walls of his temple at Medinet Habu, he boasts of his victory. But it is a hollow victory. The world Egypt knew is gone. Its trade partners are ashes. Its economy is shattered. The treasury is empty. Grain prices skyrocket. And then, the unthinkable happens. In the village of Deir el-Medina, the craftsmen building the pharaoh's own tomb lay down their tools. They have not been paid. They march on the temples chanting, "We are hungry." It is the first recorded labor strike in history. The divine order, the Ma'at, is broken. The pharaoh, the god who holds chaos at bay, cannot even feed his own tomb builders. This single moment reveals the truth. The pharaoh is vulnerable. Within a few years, Ramesses III himself is assassinated in a harem conspiracy. Robbers, sensing the weakness, begin to systematically plunder the Valley of the Kings. They are not just stealing gold, they are stealing the pharaoh's eternity. The new kingdom dies with a whisper. Egypt fractures. The throne is divided. The long sunset has begun. The centuries that follow are a blur of fragmentation and humiliation. This is the third intermediate period. Egypt is no longer a single unified nation. It is a patchwork of rival kingdoms. High priests in the south rule from Thebes, declaring themselves equal to the pharaohs in the north. The title pharaoh becomes a prize to be fought over, not a divine right. And into this power vacuum, outsiders pour in. The first are the Libyans. These are the descendants of the very prisoners of war Ramesses III had settled in the Delta. Now they seize the throne. Generals with names like Shoshenq take power, founding their own dynasty. They rule as pharaohs. They build temples and honor the gods, but they are undeniably foreign. For the first time, the man wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt is not a native Egyptian. The illusion of divine unbroken lineage is shattered. But the greatest shock is yet to come. It comes not from across the sea, but from the south. From Nubia, the land Egypt had colonized and exploited for centuries. The Nubians had long worshipped Egypt's gods. They saw themselves as more Egyptian than the feuding warlords in the north. They saw Egypt, their former master, as a fallen land that had lost its way. The Nubian king Pie decides to act. He sees it not as an invasion, but as a crusade, a holy mission to restore the true faith and reunite the two lands. His armies sweep north from their capital in Napata. They conquer city after city, forcing the rival Libyan kinglets to bend the knee. Pie arrives in Thebes not as a conqueror, but as a pilgrim. He performs the ancient rites at Karnak. He is crowned Pharaoh, Lord of Egypt and Nubia. This Black Pharaoh, as his dynasty would be known, is a paradox. He is a foreigner who has come to save Egypt from itself. For a brief, brilliant moment, the 25th dynasty restores Egypt's glory. They build pyramids in the Nubian style, the first in Egypt for over 800 years. They restore the ancient temples. They revive the old artistic styles. It feels like a renaissance. But this new fragile unity has attracted a dangerous new enemy, an empire built on terror, iron and fire, the Assyrians. From their capitals in Mesopotamia, they have forged the most brutal war machine the world has ever seen, and they have set their sights on the riches of the Nile. The Nubian pharaohs, protectors of Egypt, must now face a terror unlike any they have ever known. The fight for Egypt's soul is about to be drowned in blood.
The blood of the sacrifice promises victory.
In 671 BC, the Assyrian king Esarhaddon marches his ironclad armies into the Egyptian delta. The forces of the Nubian pharaoh Taharqa are shattered. The Assyrians are merciless. They sack the sacred city of Memphis. They impale the Egyptian nobility, but it is their return invasion that truly breaks the nation's spirit. In 663 BC, the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal goes further than any enemy before. He marches south up the Nile to the holy capital of Thebes, the city of the god Amun, the spiritual heart of Egypt for over 1,000 years. The Assyrians tear it apart. They rip the gold and silver from the temple walls. They topple statues. They carry away 2 massive obelisks as trophies. The prophet Nahum would later write of Thebes, "She was carried away. She went into captivity. Her young children also were dashed in pieces at the top of all the streets." The sack of Thebes is a profound psychological trauma. Egypt, the inviolable, has been violated. The gods themselves have been humiliated. The Nubian pharaohs retreat south, never to rule Egypt again. The Assyrians, overextended, eventually retreat, leaving a power vacuum. From this chaos, a native Egyptian dynasty, the 26th, rises from the city of Sais. Led by Pharaoh Psamtik III, they painstakingly drive out the last Assyrian garrisons. They hire Greek mercenaries to fight their battles. It is a brief, flickering renaissance. Egypt is independent again, but it is a borrowed independence, and it will not last, because a new, far greater empire is rising in the east, an empire that will swallow the world: Persia. In 525 BC, the Persian king Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great, arrives at the gates of Egypt. The last native-born pharaoh, Psamtik III, gathers his forces for a final, desperate stand at the fortress of Pelusium. The battle is a disaster. Later legends, perhaps propaganda, whisper that the Persians placed cats and other sacred animals on their front lines. The Egyptian soldiers, terrified of harming their gods, refuse to fire their arrows. Whether true or not, the Egyptian line breaks. Cambyses captures the pharaoh. What follows is a calculated lesson in terror. The Persian king forces the pharaoh's daughter to dress as a slave. He forces the pharaoh's son to be paraded to his execution. Psamtik III, the last true Egyptian to hold the throne, is forced to watch before being executed himself. The message is clear. The line of the gods is broken. For the first time, Egypt does not just have a foreign ruler. It is a foreign ruler's property. It becomes a mere province, a satrapy, in a sprawling Persian empire. The Persian kings take the title of pharaoh, but they rule from palaces in Susa and Persepolis, thousands of miles away. Egypt is now just a basket of grain and a source of gold for a foreign master. Native rebellions are sparked and brutally crushed. The very identity of Egypt is under attack. The pharaoh is no longer the shepherd. He is a distant foreign tyrant. The land of the Nile is a colony. For nearly 2 centuries, Egypt chafes under the Persian yoke. The temples fall quiet. The old ways are suppressed. The people pray for a deliverer.
They are coming.
And then he comes. Not from Egypt, but from the west. From a kingdom most Egyptians had barely heard of, Macedon. His name is Alexander. In 332 BC, Having already shattered the Persian armies in battle after battle, Alexander the Great marches into Egypt. The Persian governor, seeing no hope, surrenders without a fight. The Egyptian people do not see this as another invasion. They see it as a liberation. They line the streets, hailing Alexander as their savior. Alexander is not just a brilliant general. He is a political genius. He does not come as a conqueror burning and looting. He comes as a pilgrim. He makes sacrifices to the Apis bull, the sacred animal of Memphis. He honors the Egyptian gods, and then he does something extraordinary. He leads a small contingent of his men on a long, perilous journey deep into the western desert. His destination, the remote oasis of Siwa. Here in the searing wilderness lies the temple of the Oracle of Amun. Alexander enters the inner sanctum alone. When he emerges, the high priest greets him not as a general or even a king. He greets him as son of Amun. In one masterful stroke, Alexander has done what the Persians never could. He has become a legitimate pharaoh. He is not a foreign ruler. He is the divine son of their own chief god. On the coast, he lays the foundation for a new capital, a city that will bear his name, Alexandria. It will become the greatest city in the world. But it is a Greek city, built on Egyptian land. This is the new reality. Egypt's fate is no longer its own. When Alexander dies suddenly, his vast empire fractures. His generals, his successors, tear it apart in a frenzy of ambition. The prize of Egypt is seized by one of his closest companions, a cunning Macedonian general named Ptolemy. Ptolemy hijacks Alexander's funeral cortege, bringing the god king's body to Memphis, and later Alexandria. It is the ultimate symbol of legitimacy. He declares himself Ptolemy I, Pharaoh of Egypt. The Ptolemaic dynasty has begun. For the next 300 years, Egypt will be ruled by Greeks. These new pharaohs are clever. To the outside world, in their capital of Alexandria, they are Greek kings. They build the great library. They fund Greek poets and scientists. They speak Greek. But to the Egyptian people up the Nile, they are pharaohs. They are depicted on temple walls in traditional style. They are shown wearing the double crown, making offerings to Isis and Horus. They build some of the last, most magnificent temples Egypt will ever see at Edfu, Dendera, and Philae. But it is a facade, a brilliant performance. The rulers speak Greek, the courts speak Greek, the army speaks Greek. The ancient Egyptian language is now only for priests and commoners. A deep cultural sickness has set in. Egypt is a nation divided against itself, a kingdom with two faces. And this fragile dual identity is about to be challenged by the final and most ruthless power in the Mediterranean, Rome. The Ptolemaic dynasty is a house built on sand. While the early Ptolemies were strong, their descendants are a nest of vipers. The dynasty consumes itself in a blur of incest, poison, and assassination. Brother marries sister, sister murders brother, husbands exile their wives. The royal court of Alexandria is a bloody soap opera, all while a new power, Rome, watches from across the sea. Rome is a republic, hungry and efficient. It does not yet want to own Egypt. It is far too useful as a client state, a private bank, a personal breadbasket. The decadent Ptolemies are perfect puppets. When Ptolemy XXIII needs gold to secure his shaky throne, he doesn't appeal to his people. He bribes the Roman general Julius Caesar. He effectively mortgages his kingdom. The Egyptian people, taxed into starvation to pay for Rome's favor, are furious. They riot, driving their own pharaoh into exile. The title of pharaoh is now a joke, a poisoned crown bought and paid for with Roman gold. Into this chaos, a new figure emerges. She is the daughter of this corrupt king, and she will be the last. Cleopatra VII. She is not the woman of Hollywood legend. She is not, by most accounts, a staggering beauty. She is something far more dangerous, a genius. She is a ruthless, brilliant politician, a gifted linguist, and a true heir to the first Ptolemies. And unlike her family, she is the first in 300 years to do one critical thing. She learns to speak Egyptian. She understands her people. She embraces the ancient religion, presenting herself not as a Greek queen, but as the living incarnation of the goddess Isis. Cleopatra knows the truth. The age of Egyptian power is over. The only way to save her kingdom is to chain it to the new masters of the world. She must conquer Rome not with armies, but from within. She needs a protector, and she finds one in the most powerful man on earth, Julius Caesar. When Caesar arrives in Alexandria, chasing his rival Pompey, Cleopatra is a fugitive driven out by her own brother-husband, Ptolemy the Sultan. She cannot approach the palace, so in the most famous gamble of her life, she has herself smuggled to him, rolled up as the legend goes in a carpet. She is delivered at Caesar's feet. It is not just a plea for help, it is a power move. She is presenting him with the riches of Egypt, embodied in her. Caesar, the 52-year-old dictator, is captivated by the 21-year-old queen. He becomes her lover. He crushes her brother's armies in the Alexandrian War. He places her alone on the throne of Egypt. For a moment, the plan works. Egypt is safe, protected by its queen's connection to Rome's ruler. She even bears him a son, Caesarion, little Caesar, a child who is half Roman, half Pharaoh, a symbol of a new fused empire. She travels to Rome, a guest in Caesar's villa. She is the talk of the city, a scandal, a foreign queen, a harlot living openly with their dictator. To the Roman Senate, she is everything they fear, decadent, Eastern, and royal. Then on the Ides of March 44 BC, the dream is cut short. Julius Caesar is assassinated, stabbed to death on the floor of the Senate. Cleopatra's protector is gone. Rome collapses into a bloody civil war, and the Queen of Egypt must once again pick a side. The Roman world is now torn in two. In the West, Caesar's pragmatic, cold-blooded heir, Octavian. In the East, Caesar's most loyal and brilliant general, Mark Antony. Cleopatra once again bets everything on one man. She chooses Antony. She sails to Tarsus to meet him, not in a carpet, but on a magnificent golden barge, dressed as the goddess Venus. Surrounded by servants dressed as cupids, she overwhelms the senses of the Roman general. Antony is a soldier, a man of simple pleasures. He is completely undone. He falls for her, and he falls for the dream she represents. A new Eastern empire with Alexandria as its capital, a world to rival Rome. They become lovers, allies, and parents to 3 children. They live a life of legendary decadence in Alexandria. But back in Rome, Octavian watches, and he spins. He launches one of the most effective propaganda campaigns in history. This is not a civil war, he tells the people. This is a foreign war. Antony is not a Roman. He is a slave, bewitched by an Egyptian harlot. He is a traitor who wants to move the capital of the world to Alexandria. He has gone native. Octavian reads Antony's will aloud in the Senate. In it, Antony asks to be buried in Alexandria next to Cleopatra. The Senate is outraged. This is the proof they need. Octavian declares war, but he does not declare war on Mark Antony. In a brilliant, chilling move, he declares war on Cleopatra. The final battle for the soul of the ancient world is set. It will take place at sea off the coast of Greece, near a promontory called Actium. September 2nd, 31st BC. The fleets of Antony and Cleopatra face the smaller, more agile ships of Octavian, commanded by his genius admiral Agrippa. The battle is a catastrophe. Antony's heavy warships are outmaneuvered and burned one by one. Seeing the battle is lost, Cleopatra's squadron breaks the line and flees. Antony, seeing her sail away, abandons his men. He abandons his fleet, his army, and his honor. He boards a small ship and follows her. The battle is over. The war is lost. Octavian's victory is total. The lovers flee back to Alexandria, defeated and broken. They have nothing left but time. They form a suicide pact, the companions to the death. As Octavian's legions arrive at the gates of Alexandria, the end comes quickly. Antony hears a false report that Cleopatra is already dead. He falls on his own sword. Dying, he is carried to the mausoleum, where Cleopatra has barricaded herself. He dies in her arms. Octavian's men storm the city. They capture Cleopatra. Octavian has one goal: to march her through Rome in chains, to display her as the ultimate trophy of his victory. But Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, will not be humiliated. She will not be a pawn in anyone else's game. On August 10th, 30 BC, she dresses in her finest royal robes. She lies down on her golden couch, and as legend holds, she has an asp, a sacred cobra. Egypt is now a cog in the Roman machine. Its ancient sacred purpose is gone. It is no longer a divine kingdom. It is the personal property of an emperor, its grain feeding the mobs of Rome. The temples still run for a time. Roman emperors, from Augustus to Trajan, are occasionally carved onto temple walls. dressed as pharaohs making offerings. But it is a hollow political gesture. The heart is gone. A new faith is sweeping the empire, a faith that speaks of one true God. Christianity arrives in Egypt, and it finds a people whose own gods have been silent for generations. The new religion spreads like fire along the Nile. There it offers a new promise of eternal life, open to all, not just the wealthy elite. In 391 AD, the Roman Emperor Theodosius, a Christian, issues a decree. All pagan temples must be closed. The rituals must stop. The great temples of Karnak and Philae, which had seen 3 millennia of worship, fall silent. The priests are scattered. The final fatal blow comes not from an army but from an idea. The ancient language is abandoned. The last known hieroglyphic inscription is carved at the Temple of Philae in 394 AD. After that, nothing. The knowledge is lost. No one on earth can read the sacred writing. The voices of the pharaohs are silenced. Their names, their deeds, their gods, all become meaningless scratches on stone. Egypt, the civilization, has vanished. 3,000 years of history erased. The pyramids remained, but the key to their world was buried. It would be another 2,400 years before the Rosetta Stone was found, before the code was broken, before the pharaohs could speak again. But the world they ruled, the divine link between heaven and earth, that was gone forever. The day the pharaohs vanished was not a single day, it was a 1,000-year twilight, ending not with a bang, but with a final chiseling sound. The sound of the last hieroglyph being carved before the darkness and the silence set in.